Welcome to the ANEW Body Insight podcast, empowering and inspiring your journey to optimal health. Hosted by Dr. Supatra Tovar, clinical psychologist, registered dietitian, fitness expert, and author of Deprogrammed Diet Culture. Rethink your relationship with food, heal your mind, and live a diet-free life. And Chantal Donnelly, physical therapist and author of Settled, How to Find Calm in a Stress-Inducing World. Here at City Club Los Angeles, we follow our guests' journey to optimal health, providing you with the keys to unlock your own wellness path. Tune in and evolve with us. Hello and welcome to the ANEW Body Insight podcast at City Club Los Angeles. I am Dr. Supatra Tovar, and we are very excited to have personal development coach Natalie J. Clayton with us today.
Thank you.
I'm going to read a little bit about Natalie, and then we are going to get right into our questions. Natalie J. Clayton is an accomplished visionary leader, personal development coach, and best-selling author of her book, Awaken the Leader Within, 15 Steps to Shine Your Light. Natalie is the founder and CEO of Tilt Synergy, a coaching, consulting, and IT software group. She is a former law enforcement and undercover officer with over 20 years as a police officer, special agent, parole agent, and criminal justice professor. She has a solid background in all aspects of people management, crisis management, diversity, and case management. Natalie is also the current chair of the Women of City Club Committee, Los Angeles. Yes. As a personal development coach, Natalie teaches individuals through her intuitive insight and empathic abilities how to embrace their fear inside. In doing so, her clients develop self-mastery and move forward for positive life outcome experiences. Thank you for joining us, Natalie.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Well, my first question is about law enforcement. It's amazing that you have this extensive background. Tell us a little bit about this and how you made your transition away from law enforcement and towards executive coaching. What was your inspiration?
Well, when I let people know that I was a police officer and in law enforcement, that's the question. What did people want to know about it and what was it like and so forth. I decided to have a career in law enforcement because I was interested in helping people. And initially, when I went to school, I was going to major in accounting, and I realized I didn't want to push numbers, and I am a people person. And I had this epiphany that I could save the world, believe it or not. And I decided to do something that was non-traditional and become a police officer because it gave me the ability to work in the community and carry a gun and I wanted a career that was different, and it was very different. No day is the same. And so, I started off with San Diego Police Department. And interesting enough, when I was in a police academy, I never shot a gun, and I was afraid of guns. My father had this, when I was a kid, I thought it was a big gun. It was a .38 Special. So I don't know if anyone knows about guns. It's a little toy gun.
Not a gun person, but
anyway,
I've shot some before. They're kind of fun.
Yeah, they are. It's very fun. It's if you're stressed out, it's a good way to get rid of stress. But I started with San Diego PD. I worked in the community. I was investigation. I did a lot of undercover work. Then I transitioned to the Department of Justice for the state of California. I work with the Department of Bureau of Narcotic Enforcement. Wow. And we were investigating meth labs throughout the state of California. Yeah, it was pretty scary. Yes, really nasty stuff out there. And from there, I transitioned to parole. There were some issues with the Department of Justice, and that I won't go into that because that will be in my legacy book that I'll write about that. And then I was doing my work, and 5 years in with the Department of Corrections and Rehab, and I was diagnosed with cancer. a very aggressive stage 3 cancer. It was colon cancer. And so from that point on, from that treatment and there was surgery, I made a decision that this was a pivot point in my life where I needed to stop and evaluate my life and to see, what was going on with me and to take care of myself. And so that was the huge transition. There was something else that happened before that too. My son, there were three major things that happened to me in that year. My son was in a horrible accident. This is 2011. Where my son was hit by a bus. He was dragged 300 feet. He was in a hospital for 10 months. He had 38 surgeries. My marriage fell apart. And then I was diagnosed with cancer.
Oh my goodness.
So I was like, okay. I was like, really?
Yeah.
And so I just had to just be still. And what I know now is that, I had this gift of intuitiveness and empath my whole life. I can remember being a kid, when I was probably 3 years old, just knowing things. But, as a kid, you stuff it down because you don't understand it. And then, moving forward, life happens. And then you're still, and then you start realizing, oh, okay, this is, there's something going on here. And, so I've been a coach my whole life. I've always coached people from the time I was little. I just had this gift. I could look at a person and I would be able to assess them and just figure things out. And so when I had to be still, because I was a super woman, I had an S on my chest. I had 3 kids. I was, and my second marriage was a divorce. First marriage was a divorce. I had 3 kids. I was a single mom, so I had this super S on my chest, and I had to take the S off my chest and just really pour into myself, take care of my son too, and then pour into myself. And I just decided that I'm done. I'm done with this because my health and my life is more important.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think, a lot of women carry so much of the burden and the workload.
Yes.
They are always putting the S on their chest and putting everyone else before themselves. And oftentimes their health suffers because of that. And so, you mentioned that you had to be still and you were using your intuition and your empathic abilities. I want to know more about that. What does that feel like and how do you use it?
Well, I'm going to go back to my son. So before my son had his accident in 2011, I had this premonition that with a bus and my son, and I couldn't figure out what it was. And but going back, I've always had this premonition of things happening. And I was like, okay, it happened. Okay, maybe it's just luck or whatever. But when my son had his accident, I just remember getting a phone call from my daughter, and my daughter was hysterical because she got a call from the police, and the police told her that you have 5 minutes to get to the hospital. Your brother's not going to make it.
Oh my goodness.
And so I was in Sacramento at that time, and I just remember thinking like, no, this is not going to happen. And I remember falling on my face. And well, first of all, calming my daughter down because she was hysterical and she was trying to get to the hospital. So I had to, put on this, cop hat, you can order, and calm her down and help her to navigate to Cedars-Sinai Hospital. That's where he was. And then to call my family. So I was that person doing everything. And then after all that happened, I just remember falling on my face and I was just praying to God. I said, you know what? Just save my son. And then in my soul, I felt my son's spirit and I felt his energy. And I just started speaking to him. And I told him, I said, you're going to make it. You're not going to die. And just hold on. Because I was in Sacramento at that time. And I go, I'm going to be there. And I was just speaking to him. That's the only thing I can remember that I felt the energy going to my son. And then, and I know people think this is kind of woo-woo, but I started speaking to the enemy and the devil, whatever you call it, the darkness. And I said, you can't have my son. Take your hands off him. You cannot have him. And I couldn't get to LA at that time because it was almost midnight and all the flights were, it was the earliest flight was 9 o'clock in the morning. So I just remember telepathically speaking to my son and telling him that he's going to make it. He's going to make it. And he survived. He survived. And by the time I got down to the hospital, I had no idea that he was dragged like almost 400 feet by a bus.
Horrible.
And I didn't know what the extent of his injuries were, but I just remember saying to him that you're going to make it. And I never left his side at that time. So it's just, it's what was the pivoting point for me was just believing that my son was going to make it, and believing no matter what the situation or circumstances looked like, that he was going to make it. And so from my belief of being a Christian and following God and understanding the word of God, I just used that to my advantage, because in my church, we believe that the word of God is the breath of life. So I just said, I'm going to speak this, and I believe this is going to happen. And it did. And despite everything that I saw, and my son was having 3 surgeries a week, and I lived in the hospital for 10 months.
Wow.
But what I realized is that we have the power within us. And if you have an awareness of the divine, however you call it, I call it God, the Holy Spirit, divine, your higher source, you can tap into that spirit, and you can either speak life into your situation, or you can speak death. And so I chose to speak life. And so when I'm working with clients, I will sit down with them and have an assessment with them and figure out where they are in their lives, and what internally is stopping them from getting to their next, whatever their next is. And I spend time with them to kind of understand their mindset and where they're at and what's blocking them, because it's always some type of mental blockage. Mm-hmm. And so it depends. And we focus on what is the most pressing issue, in their lives that's preventing them from moving forward, And so that's what I do without going into too much detail.
Well, it sounds like that's what you did for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You had 3 major life events that were so stressful and so frightening. Yeah. And you had to tap into that yourself, mm-hmm, for your son, in order to be strong for him, in order to help him heal. And then you had to do that for yourself. So I just want to know a little bit more about how you beat it, how you beat cancer, and then what happened after for you to found your company, Tilt Synergy.
Okay. Well, after my son, survived, after the 10 months and all the surgeries and, all of the things that he went through, and my faith was like way up here. I think you have to make a decision, a conscious decision in your mind to believe what you want to show up. And so when ironically, when I got diagnosed with cancer, I just, it was almost like the wind was knocked out of me. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. I was like, what? But I just said, okay. And I remember, I called my mom. My mom is no longer here, but I remember calling her, and we cried. We cried for 30 minutes on the phone. I was just like hysterical crying. And I said, and I'm like, okay, I got that out of my system. Now it's time to go to work, and I believe that I'm going to be healed. So I went back in. I had to do an EKG, all the things you have to do to prepare yourself. And I just chose to believe that I was healed. And so, and then I did research, because you have to be proactive in your life. Faith and work goes hand in hand. So you have to have faith, but you got to put in the work. So you can't have faith without work. You can't have work without faith. And so I decided to do research on how to cure cancer naturally. Mm-hmm. And there's a book called How to Cure Cancer Naturally. And it's like 270 pages, I think. Mm. And to this day, I have no idea what a book is, but I managed to find it at that time. And I started doing research I decided that I would hire a holistic practitioner, and then I had my oncologist, and then I had an interesting part. I had a doctor who just shared with me. He's like, "Get that out of you." He said, "Go cut it out of you." He says, "Your numbers are low. Go get it out of you." And so, again, instead of being defeated, I just thought, I'm going to win. You know what? I have the power to overcome this, and I'm going to overcome this despite of what the doctors were saying and all those different things. It's you have to make a conscious decision that you're not going to let what's told to you or what you see to make you fall into a sunken place. And I refuse to do that. So, um, I remember my oncologist I had shared with him that I was going to go to a holistic practitioner, and he told me everything. No, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
That's
You know,
typical.
no, no, no. And I was like, and so I just listened to him, and he was like, you don't eat, leafy vegetables. Don't when you go to the gym, I wouldn't recommend you go to the gym, and
Oh, wow.
wear a mask. And I was like, no. I said, listen, that's going in my mind. If I do those things, I'm telling myself that I'm sick, and I'm telling myself that I'm defeated. I said, I'm not going to do that. Anyway, so we battled back and forth. And so I finally decided, you know what, this is my life. This is my body. I'm going to do what I know is best for me to do. And, then in one period of time, I mean, it was rough. I'm telling you, it was rough. Um, I remember getting a call from him, and he had shared with me that, um, they thought that the cancer had metastasized to my liver. And I was like, I don't believe that.
Mm.
And then he was like, well, and he was telling me all these different things. Well, if it does, we can take a portion of your liver. I mean, all this negative stuff, right?
Oh, my goodness.
And so I said, no, I said, I tell you what, I don't want you to do a biopsy of my liver. I said, you need to do a biopsy of my liver, and then we'll go from there. And so I had a biopsy of my liver. And I remember, I never forget this because I was sedated, and the doctor said, I did a biopsy of your liver. Your liver's fine. But what I did was I detoxed. I did a cleanse of my liver. Um, I was just thinking that, what can I do to help my body
Yes, I'm
become
super
strong?
curious about
Yeah.
because I'm a
Hmm.
dietitian. Did you really change up your diet?
Oh yeah, I changed my diet. Let's see. I stopped drinking coffee. I stopped drinking sodas. I didn't drink a lot of sodas, but all sugar. I stopped any type of granulated sugar. I stopped. I stopped drinking, eating white flour, rice. Um, I started making juicing. Just the regular things that God created on earth. And what I realized is that everything on this earth was created for our bodies and to heal our bodies. And you can heal your body of anything. Um, there's it was created. It's from the motherland. And so I just incorporated that into my diet. I hired a holistic practitioner, and she she put me on what she did. And then I decided that I would do chemo, because after I had my surgery, you know, actually the Lord told me, he says, you're healed. No matter what you do, you're going to be healed. And so I believed it. So I said, well, you know what? I'm not going to push aside Western medicine because it's needed. And I saw how it was so effective with my son, because my son was trauma. I was internal and he was trauma. So there's a use for it, but I think you have to take control of your temple. And so what we did was for 4 months, I built up my immune system, and with her treatments, and then I decided that if that's what I wanted to do chemo, I would do it. And so when I went to chemo, I didn't have any side effects. Well, the only side effects I had, my hands were black, my feet were black.
Wow.
So I did it for 6 months. I remember when I would have my treatment, it felt like I was swallowing glass right after the treatment. When I ate food, I couldn't drink cold water. It felt like I was swallowing broken glass and nails.
Wow.
And so that was 6 months of my life. And, but again, I built up my immune system. And so my body was able to sustain that. And I just believe that, okay, I'm going to be healed no matter what. So.
I think that the mindset that
Mm-hmm.
you have is everything, and
Right.
setting an intention with your mindset
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and moving forward, using science, using medicine, but
Right.
also using food. And
Oh, yeah.
food is, especially when you look at
Mm-hmm.
whole foods, lots of plants, they are naturally healing, and you
Right.
can
Yeah.
abate cancer or
Mm-hmm.
get rid of it entirely
Right.
just through diet alone. But I'm glad that you used everything in your
I
arsenal.
used everything. And interesting enough, my holistic practitioner, she, she did, so it was holistic. So she did a test. She checked my urine, my saliva, and then she took a piece of my hair from behind my ear, and I forget what it's called, but she did a diagnosis of it. So it checked all of my everything, all of the minerals and everything that was in my body, and it showed that my deficiencies. It showed where I had over too many minerals and so forth. And then from that, it created a diet that my body needed to become strong. So so a lot of times the studies come out and they say, okay, if you have this, you shouldn't eat this, and that. And what my body needed was completely opposite of that. So you really have to, everyone is individual, people, and your body may need certain things that other people may not need. You have to figure that part out. And, yeah, so it was very interesting, for me. It was an interesting journey, life-changing for me. And then I started realizing, like, wow, okay, I'm onto something here, because not only did my son's life, I was directing the doctors. I'm like, no, you need to do this, and that with my son. You need to, I was just like, they were like, who's this little woman coming in here telling us what to do?
His mom.
But, it just made me realize that setting your intention, understanding the power that you have within you, because we each have the power within us, but having an awareness of understanding the power that you have, and you can overcome anything in your life. And it's just, that's my belief. And you choose to either sink or you choose to swim. And I choose to swim.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Yes, that
Oh,
deserves
thank you.
applause for sure. So, when you went into personal development, who did you want to work with?
Initially, I wanted to work with women, and I did. I work with women and leaders, business owners. Now I'm starting to attract men. It's interesting, attracting men. But I think for me, it's just people who have gone through some of the things that I've gone through, whether it's your health, cancer, um, a divorce, trauma like my son, just pouring into people and helping them to shift the way that they think, not on that dot. I call it a dot on the wall, because it really is. If you think about how big and how powerful God is, um, whatever you call it, God, divine, your higher source, all the things that we go through is just a dot. It's a dot, and if you focus on that dot, that's all you're going to see. So it's, to me, it's just men and women and even children to overcome. And so I'm going to tell you a story. So when after I went through my cancer and my son was healed, my friend, and I sought, prayer, through one of my friends. She's a minister. And I went to her church and I said, I need you to pray over me, because I'm getting ready to have this, um, that biopsy that I was telling you about earlier. I said, and I need you to just pray over me. And so she asked me to come in and speak at her church about faith. And so I did. Myself and two of my sons came. The one that was in his accident came, and we spoke on faith. And so I just spoke from the heart. And when I was speaking, she says, you are a healer by the words you speak or laying of your hands. And I was like, oh no, not me. I ran. I ran. I'm like, I'm not, no. I'm like, I'm not doing this. But as God has a way of bringing you to what he wants you to do. So I'm shifting my clients to people who have gone through cancer or are going through cancer, because I've gone through it. I know the ebb and flow of cancer. I know the things that you think about. Even when you survive it, you still have this thing in your mind like, okay, oh, I have this little pain over here. What is that? Being human and being transparent, people need support, and people need to figure out how to navigate their way through, whether it's chemo, whatever it is that your outcome that you want to experience. And so my that's my mission now, is to move into that. And that was my calling, but I ran from it. I was like, oh no, I'm not doing that.
No, you're meant to do it.
I'm like, I'm not doing. Well, it's interesting because I remember when my son overcame it and I overcame it, and I'm sharing my story to a woman, and her sister, passed away from cancer. And after I shared my story, she was like, well, we're believers and, we're followers. And my sister didn't survive. And it trumped me. And I just like, oh my God, am I being haughty? Am I saying this away? Am I saying this the wrong way? So I shut down. And I said, I'm not going to talk about it. God is very funny in what he does. And so everywhere I went, somebody would be like, oh, I got cancer. Oh, I'm going through cancer. I'm going to have brain surgery for cancer. I have cancer of this. And I'm like, and I'm sitting there. And so my soul felt horrible, because I'm thinking like, oh my God, I need to pour into this person. And so finally I said, okay, when the time is right for me to speak to a person, if it comes up to me one more time, I'm going to speak to this person. And I did, but I still ran. I was like, oh no, I'm not doing that. I'm like,
but you're called to do it.
But it's my calling. So I'm finally surrendering.
We are so glad that you're doing that. We're so glad that you're healthy and with us today. We are going to take a pause because we are out of time for this episode, but we will be coming back for the second part of this episode. Thank you so much for joining us. Tune in next week for the second half of this thought-provoking an interview with personal development coach Natalie J. Clayton. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning into the ANEW Body Insight podcast. Please remember, the content shared on this podcast is for entertainment purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. You can find us anywhere podcasts are streaming, on YouTube at my.anew.insight and at anew-insight.com under the ANEW Body Insight podcast tab. Follow us on our socials at my.anew.insight on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads for more updates. Tune in next time and evolve with us.